Hey, welcome to Architecture is Easy with Joseph Adam Dunn. My name is Adam, and today we're gonna talk about, today's gonna talk about the one and only, the door, the one and only, the door. If I say any more, then you will be bored, so I'm not gonna say the door anymore, because then it's just a chore if you're bored, and I have a whole story to tell you, and we just can't start off like that. So wipe that clean and moving on. Today I'm going to tell you the story of the door. So come on in, let's talk about it. So now the door, of course, everybody's used a door before. I mean, maybe somewhere in the far reaches of the earth, I suppose there are some people that have never used a door. There's probably even, now that I even think about it some more, there's probably people that have never even seen a door or even know what a door is. That's incredible. That's just unbelievable to me, because I feel like, I've spent so much time in and out of doors, and I've listened to the Doors quite a bit. And I saw the movie The Doors back in high school, and I've had some doors opened for me. I've had some doors shut, and doors are just like, they're an everyday occurrence all day long. Every day is door day here in the human existence. This show called The Human Existence. So, anyways, I hope you don't mind my exposed kneecaps here today, because I am doing the laundry today, so I'm down to the bare necessities, the bare minimums. I'm not naked, I'm wearing a bathing suit, just to clarify on that. I'm wearing a bathing suit. Let me clear my throat door. So the story of the door. So the door really kind of started back, as far as we know, in ancient Egypt, and they used to use doors initially to kind of carry stuff around. Like it was like sort of like a gurney, like a solid wood gurney that they built to kind of like carry their dead people out bury them in the sand, or kind of they would sort of like take 4 to 6 of them, and they would like put somebody on this gurney, on this like plank of wood, and they'd sort of hike up to the top of the pyramid. And once they got up there, they would be like, "Okay, boys, tipsy turvy," and they turn it over, and then just and you'd watch your fellow Egyptian kind of roll down the pyramid, and that was kind of like a sort of a death ritual going away party type of thing. It was fun. It was arguably a lot of work for the ball bearers, the pall bearers, the ball bearers, the pall bearers, or the gurney bearers, the door bearers, I think we'll call it in this case. So after a while, they're like, you know what? Let's get rid of these planks of wood that we're using to carry things and people around. They're just so heavy. They're so damn heavy. And they're like, why does everything have to be so heavy in Egypt? So they had a commission. They had a meeting, and they started going, okay, let's lighten the load a little bit here. And so they found new ways to kind of start carrying things that had backpacks and like hammocks and kind of like thatched baskets and things like that they would kind of carry things in. And the dead bodies, they really just kind of sort of they just would start to burn them. It's just one and done. That's what we say here. But the thing is, once that happened, they were like, oh, well, now we have all these like rectangular shaped wooden planks that we used for years to kind of carry all this stuff around. What are we going to do with all this stuff? And they started saying, well, the kids started to use it in a way that they would prop it up sort of vertically. And one kid would prop it up, and then the other kids would go on the other side, and they'd close their eyes, and then they'd have to try to figure out which kid was holding it up. It was kind of like the original hide and go seek. So they would close their eyes. They'd all close their eyes, and then one of them would get chosen to lift this thing up, and they'd go and they'd lift up that plank, And then they'd all have to like keep their eyes closed and ask questions and try to figure out who's on the other side of that plank. And then when they finally finished it, they figured out who it was. They were like, "Oh, it's Gertrude! Yay, we figured out it's Gertrude." Gertrude was like sort of like he would shift it in the sand and open and be like, "Yay, it's me! It's Gertrude behind the wood, behind the wooden plank." And then they were like, there was this other guy who named Doran, and Doran was like, "I never get chosen to be behind the plank." And so they were like, "Oh," and he would say this every single time. He'd be like, "I never get chosen. I want to be behind the plank." And so Doran, the game ultimately became Doran's Choice, ironically, because he was actually never, got to be, he was never the one that was chosen. And then from there, it kind of got shortened to Door. So the game itself became Door. And then, so that thing that they were using, where they were sliding over and revealing the other person on the other side, that ultimately game became Door. And that's where we get the term door form. And so from there, they were like, you know what? There's a lot of things that I kind of need. Sometimes even when I'm not playing a game, I kind of need to hide from, every now and then I have to hide from my herd of sheep, or I have to hide from my parents, or I need to hide from some alien visitor, because we all know the pyramids were built by aliens. So sometimes when the aliens would come out, you would need something to kind of hide behind, and you would want something that would kind of like, that you could quickly get behind and then close it. And so they started using these planks from the game Door, and they would attach those to their little miniature like tiny house pyramids, which were basically just like pyramids but with like smaller blocks. So they all lived in these kind of basically miniature pyramids everywhere. But they had a sort of entry, almost like an igloo, where you would just kind of walk down a little hallway, but there was never like an actual sealed component to it, And they're like, "God, we got to keep these aliens out, or we got to keep the sheep out, or we got to keep our, sometimes the cousins want to come by and borrow sugar." So they started putting these planks from the game Door on there, and they're like, "This works all day long." So they would put those in there, and then they kind of figured out a little latch system that they could use. And they're like, before you know it, they're like, "Oh, we can even swing it open, and closed," and and the world was a better place. And even Dorian, who never got chosen in the game, he had the best door in town. Like, he was like super jazzed on this whole idea. He literally was famous for his door. So all was well, and redemption for poor little Dorian. He became famous throughout the land. So that's where it all kind of started. And then from there, the door kind of became sort of like a sort of arts and crafts kind of thing, where people were like, everybody kind of had the same like little stone block kind of tiny house pyramids, but the door was the one thing that was easy to kind of give some sort of like variation, like aesthetic to, and you could add your personality and so they started having these classes, these like arts and crafts door classes, and people would come together with their friends or their wives or their loved ones that you're having kind of a you need like a bonding moment with, and you would go to these classes and you would paint or you would carve and chip and whittle away at these doors and stuff. And so like your real badge of honor became the sort of how cool and elaborate and designed the door was at the front of your little tiny house pyramid. And so that ultimately led to like the door of like, once you kind of came over to someone's house and you saw how cool their door was, you knew that like you would like, there was like a sort of a caste system. There was like a sort of a rating, and like each door kind of had like a little bit of a this is where the story starts to get a little bit kind of unfortunate, but these doors started to get kind of like rated from 1 to 10, and like some people would like, "Oh, I'm sorry, Ezra and Jonah and Jebediah, that I can't be your friend anymore because your door is rated 7 or even a 5." And some people were like, "I'm only coming over for like game night if you have a 3 door or above." So it kind of like, it became like a point of like real like artistic expression and enlightenment and renaissance, but it also was like a sort of a means of a social oppression and caste system and kind of and judgment. So weigh these things out a little bit. So it was a bit of a, so, and then from there, they were like, okay, well, these doors have really served us well. And people started going to be like, I just wish my house was as cool as this door. And some people were like, I'm just going to get rid of my pyramid and I'm just going to live under my door. And they started creating these little sort of they'd buy an extra door and they would lean them together and they would put one at the bottom so they would have these like kind of triangles that were kind of shaped almost like pyramids, but they were just a series of doors. And that is where the initial A-frame houses were developed. It was just basically three doors that were kind of leaned together, and in that way they were like, now I can, not only do I have a number 1 or number 2 or number 3 rated door, but now I can take all 3 of my doors and make the whole house. My whole house will be rated, and that's how they became sort of famous throughout the land. And those were the first sort of arts and crafts, Egyptian arts and crafts designers who kind of really specialized in that movement. And from there, it just kind of like it went wild. The door ultimately became symbolic for a lot of things in terms of separating yourself from the inside and the out, but it also separating yourself from sort of conceptual ideas or feelings or attributes that like, I have a situation that I want to kind of get away from, so I'm going to step through the door and leave it behind. So it became a sort of philosophical sort of benchmark of an analogy for so many things. But it all kind of goes back to that original game in Egypt with Dorian's choice, who wanted to be the one chosen behind that door. So the whole spirit of like being the one with the door and being able to go behind it holds true throughout the ages and still holds true today. And that's the story of the door. I just love that story. So until next time, remember, architecture is easy.